It is now 7:15, the morning after I initially stuck it on the grill. Getting my glove on here, and as you can see, the smoke's still going. So I open it up, I look inside. Alright, so now you can see that we got some beautiful char on everything. It's really covered nicely. Everything looks good. So at this point, obviously it's pretty early in the morning. My family's not going to feel like eating brisket this early in the morning. We could do brisket tacos, but they're not really into that. So we're going to go ahead and flip this so we can get the other side with that char like I mentioned earlier in the video, and then that way you get the flavoring on everything. Now to do something like this, you definitely need to wear a glove. You know, this meat's sitting at, you know, somewhere between 200 and 250 degrees, and it will burn you, particularly the juices, and whenever you sink your hand into it to actually flip it over, the fat will compress and your fingers will actually sink down into that fat, and it will burn and hurt if you let it do that. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it now. Try to do this one-handed so you can actually see it. There we go. So now you can see the bottom. We're actually fully cooked. Everything looks good. But we don't have that char on the bottom, so let's go ahead and flip it over completely. There we go. And that looks good. So now we're going to build up that char on this side of it and grab the other small lean brisket. Let's flip him over too. There we go. We got him all flipped over now. So both the meats are completely cooked at this time, just because of how long it's been. But that's okay. You know, you can let it go for quite a while longer. You're not going to dry it out or anything like that. Now, at this point, I usually drain off some of the juices, and I'm actually going to do that. So all I do with the system that I have, I've got a weep hole at the bottom, and I just let it go onto the ground. So I'm going to actually drain off some of the juices back over here by just bending the boat a little bit. And you can see that it's draining off back over here. And we don't want to drain everything off or we're going to have a problem with it drying out. So we're going to stop right there. You can see there's just a little small layer of juices in the bottom still. And there we go. Getting lots of smoke coming out, which is good. It's exactly what we need. Now, the night before, you know, whenever you're going to leave it overnight, I made sure to stick a big log on my fire, and you know, some pretty good chunks of kindling, so that we don't have any issues with the fire going out overnight. And I just put some more wood on it this morning, just to make sure I get a good heavy smoke. Got some more of the apple and pecan chips in there, and there's this right here is a big giant piece of mesquite. But I got oak. Here's some oak in here, and here's another piece of oak over here, and then the chips. So everything's looking really good. So just a few more hours of it letting the flavors infuse the smoke into this side of the meat, and we're ready to serve. Okay, so it's now been 28 hours and the meat's done. Gives you a good look there at the beef. Let me get my glove. So once again, this stuff is really, really hot. So you got to get something that'll protect your hand. There we go. There's our beef. There's our lean brisket, rather. Looking mighty tasty. Go ahead and put it over here on the tray. And there is our fatty brisket. And it's looking good as well. just going to go ahead and cut one at a time, so I'm going to go ahead and go cut the lean brisket. Alrighty, so here's our brisket sitting inside the house, and just let it sit for a few minutes. So if there's any reinfusing of the juices, it'll happen and turn out beautiful. Alrighty, so now that we've let it sit for a little while, we're actually ready to do our carving. And there's a lot of different ways that you can carve meat. Everybody says to go against the grain. Some people go with the grain. For me, I just look at the meat and judge by the look of it how I can actually get the biggest slices, because I know how my family likes to eat the brisket. So again, this is the lean brisket, so we're just going to hold on to it, and then we're just going to do some carve points here. And then you can start seeing just how deep the smoke goes by the pink color. And there you go. Beautifully cooked brisket. Again, very deep on the smoke. We have it on both sides, as you can tell, the char. So we have a nice flavor all the way around on the brisket. Okay, so on the big brisket, we've got two different sides of the brisket. Now, there's different ways that you can carve it up. The way that I typically do it is the thinner side, the more lean side, I usually use it for just regular brisket type cuts. This is what I serve with the barbecue sauce and you know, the big pieces on the plates, and everything tastes really good, of course. And then on this side, this is more of a pulled beef side, because you got way more fat over here, so it's really easy to separate the meat from the fat by actually pulling it. So what we do with this side over here is we end up taking it, putting it in a bowl, and we mix it with our barbecue sauce, and then you made pulled beef sandwich, the same way you do with pulled pork sandwich. It tastes really good. Also works very good with breakfast tacos. If you want to have a brisket breakfast taco, this would be the side that you'd pull it from, just because of the amount of fat that's in it. It's much more difficult to get a clean cut like you do over here. Now, if you're a person who enjoys really fatty beef, then you can just cut your beef from over here and you'll have all the fat you want, probably more than you want. My family, we are very much so a lean brisket family, so this is the side that we eat from. So again, cut it basically in the middle. You end up finding the fat pocket up over here. You find where it ends, and that will tell you pretty much exactly where your cut needs to be. You may have a little slop here and there, but you're not going to be missing out on much because you're going to be trimming it. Alrighty, so for pulled beef, you can see I've actually got a piece of the fatty side here. Pulled beef is a little difficult because the meat's warm, and for my family, it's exceptionally difficult compared to most, because my family doesn't like fat. None of us do. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, and this is what I've gotten out so far. And I'm almost done with the fatty end of the brisket. But for us, since we don't like fat, what I do is I actually reach in and I pull the actual meat out. Now, you know, for those of you who don't want to know what it is, I'm going to tell you, this is actually the muscle fiber. Which is the good part. The fat that's in between, now it's infused all of its juices into the meat through the cooking process, so we really don't need the fat there to eat it, unless you just really enjoy fat for some reason, which is fine. You know, everybody to their own. So all you do is you just dig your fingers in here. Now you could do this with the knife, but with how much fat is in here, you're going to be sitting here for hours trying to carve this thing up and get all of the good pieces of meat out. But what you do is you find a muscle fiber and you just kind of gently pull on it, and it'll pull to a point where there's just too much fat surrounding it, and then it'll pull out. So here we have a muscle fiber right here. Kind of work it loose at the bottom, and you saw it came out of there. So there we go. There's our good piece of meat that we're chewing on, or going to be chewing on rather. and just keep on working the meat. It'll take you a good long while to get it all out. Do it now while the brisket is warm. If you wait a long time, you're going to have a heck of a hard time actually pulling all this meat out. And at that point, you might as well, unless you're a gristle and fat fan, then you might as well just throw it away. So your day is not done until you get all this type of stuff pulled out, if you're going to end up making a pulled beef sandwich.